I'm good. Carl, you can start. Welcome to the January 11, 2021 Valley View School Board meeting. Mr. Zach? No, Mr. Baduris, why don't you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States Republic, for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Apologize for our few-minute late start. We had some technical issues.
Yes.
Okay.
You get the
I wonder if they can hear us.
board affirmation statement up?
Oh, no. Is
But
somebody
ask.
letting them know that
I just texted Carl and said we can't hear
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Board affirmation statement. Mr. Baduris.
I'm thinking they
Our
can't
mission
hear
is
us
to
'cause
empower
Steve's
all
not
learners to be college,
acknowledging.
career, and life ready, and to develop, grow, and achieve as productive citizens. We will hold high expectations and provide collaborative supports to ensure academic, social, and emotional success for all students in Valley View School District, regardless of race, gender, income, geography, disability, or native language, through rigor, assessment, instruction, and accountability.
So can you guys that are remote, can you hear this? Can you guys hear us on the remote? Diane, somebody?
Hear you.
They can't hear very well. Can you do? Okay, they're working on it. We'll give it a second. How about now? They're not up on the screen. Okay. Oh, now you're back. Can you hear us now?
I can't see anybody and I can't hear anything. Hopefully nothing's
We can
going
hear
on.
you guys.
I could see.
And if you're not going to speak, we'd ask that you go on mute.
Yeah, we can't hear anything either, Sally.
Okay.
We could just hear Carl talking now.
New laptop.
We can see, yes,
Yes.
Carol.
You're pretty much ninja looking though.
You guys hear us now?
Not as clear as we could hear Carl.
Anyone? Liz?
Can't
Yep.
hear you.
Deb? Diane?
Not clear.
Sally?
I don't even hear him.
I can't hear him either.
I hear him, but he said, I heard him asking us, he asked me if I could hear.
Very quietly, we could hear him just a little bit.
How about now? I think they're rebooting you guys up there now. This could be a really quick meeting. You guys hear us now? Anyone? They're not up on this screen. I don't know if you got them up. I can't see, but. Deb? Can you hear us now? Are you guys available now? Can you hear us? Liz, Deb, Sally, Diane. Hey, can you hear us now? All right, they're nodding and thumbs up. Can we hear you? I can't hear you, Diane. I see you're talking, but I can't hear you. One at a time, but make sure the mics are off mute. Says your default speaker is changed to speaker something. and will now be used. Anybody speaking? Nita, your microphone is muted. I can see that. Diane, is your mic muted? So for those of you who can hear us at home, we are experiencing technical difficulties with the board members who are joining remotely and staff as well. So we are trying to work through that. There's 4 people up in the tech room scrambling around right now. So my apologies, and we will resume the meeting as soon as we can. I can't see them, but the screen's black. Can you guys hear us? If anybody can hear, just chime in. Can you guys hear us now? We can't hear you. Can you talk, Diane? Just keep chatting. We got nothing. Oh, there we go.
You got me
You got
now?
Yay!
Yay!
All right.
Touchdown. All right.
Oh, now you can turn it down a little bit for Steve. He's really loud.
All right, here we go.
Yeah.
I can't hear him again.
Oh, no.
You can't hear yourself?
Now I hear you.
Now we hear
There
you.
you go.
Don't
That's because
worry,
we weren't
please.
talking. All right. Everybody ready?
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
restart this. Left off at the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe. Board affirmation statement had been read by Member Badouris, and now the agenda. So Superintendent Kinder, the agenda?
Yes, sir. We would like to ask the board to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Moving down the agenda. Treasurer's report, Mr. Grizzaffi.
Treasurer's Action Report 5.1 for the month of December includes interim obligation payments at $4,747,582.50, debt service payments totaling $448,625, total interim obligation payments for action this evening, $5,196,207.50.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Member Badouris and Member,
No, Sikora and Perro. Sikora and Perro.
okay, we have motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
Member Gilbo,
Yes.
Member Perro,
Yes.
Member Badouris,
Yes.
Secretary Sikora,
Yes.
Vice President Zach,
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes.
Schedule of bills 5.2 for the month of January has four funds representing bills payable of $1,736,897.97 for your action.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. A roll call vote would be in order.
Member Gilbo,
Yes.
Member Perro,
Yes.
Member Badouris,
Yes.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
Secretary Sikora,
Yes.
Vice President Zach,
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Property
Treasurer's
taxes.
Information Report 5.3 through 5.6, summary of investments, property taxes received, state funding update, and student trust accounts for November are there for your information. Just a couple comments on the state funding update. Right now, the state is keeping up with the payments due the districts. We find ourselves just 30 days out, which, to me is certainly a victory in and of itself. We'll see if that holds as we progress through the remainder of the fiscal year ending June 30. The property taxes received is also worth noting. If you take a look at that, our collections really to date, we're actually better than we were last year. Right now, we're outstanding taxes of 0.13%. So again, you can't say enough about that, and happy to be in that position as well. So just want to make note of that.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Grizzaffi on that? Moving down the agenda, consent agenda items. Ms. Kinder.
Yes, we have 5 items that we are seeking your approval on this evening. 6.1, board meeting minutes from December 14th, 2020. 6.2, executive session meeting minutes, December 14th, 2020. 6.3, gifts to district digital library. 6.4, resolution number 2109, Transportation Consortium IGA Intergovernmental Agreement. And 6.5, fiscal year 2019-2020 audit report.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Motion by member Zach, second by member, I can't see, so I'm guessing, sound like
Perro.
Diane. Perro, okay. We have motion and second. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Perro,
Yes.
Member Badouris,
Yes.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
Member Gilbo,
Yes.
Secretary Sikora,
Yes.
Vice President Zach,
Yes.
President Quigley.
Yes. Student and staff recognition, spotlight video, Nicole Williams, Humphrey Middle School, 7th grade math teacher.
Yes, periodically we share spotlight videos and other pictures and small ways that we can celebrate the amazing efforts of our staff and the hard work of our students. Tonight's spotlight video, produced by Jim Blaney, and our communications director, is Mrs. Nicole Williams, Humphrey Middle School 7th grade math teacher, and we're excited to share a glimpse of some of the magic that's happening even remotely with our teachers and students.
Give me an example of a challenge that you feel like you've overcome as far as math instruction is concerned.
One of my classes, my 7th grade honors class, we're working with transformations, and that requires them to use patty paper, but I can't see if they're tracing things correctly. So how do I know if they're doing it right? So I'm trying to utilize as many online tools as I can to really help communicate those things that I need them to understand to them.
How have you made sure that you're meeting the social and emotional needs of your students as well?
My answer to like anything is responsive classroom. Like, period. Responsive classroom, period. I could elaborate on responsive classroom until the end of time. That has been probably the one thing that is saving me, especially in remote learning. It saved me last year. I felt it was like the missing link to my teaching when I went full force with it.
Today we have a scenario instead of kind of like a question. Kind of like how we did last week with the scenario. This one is your friends came over to your house for a movie night. One of your friends brought another friend with. So there are more people than you planned for. You want to pass out the drinks, but you only have 5 cans of soda and you need 6 for everyone to have one. What could you do?
There's a misconception that like responsive classroom is just like morning meeting. And there's so much more to responsive classroom. It's in your language, how you talk to kids, reminding language, reinforcing language, redirecting language. It's about welcoming them, right? So we can't welcome them at the door. So every day I make sure I let them in and I still greet each of them by names.
When you hear the words you know, drop them in the chat. You don't have to know the lyrics. It's very catchy. Translate to the left one time. Translate to the right. Now go ahead and slide. Translate to the left 2 times. Translate to the right. Now go ahead and slide. Bring it up, up, up and down. Bring it up, up, up and down.
I started playing guitar when I was in 6th grade, 7th grade. So I've always been into like writing music, creating music, just kind of like, you know, in the 4 walls of my bedroom. It became this little project a couple of years ago where I just, you know, just started thinking of concepts we were working on and like, how can I help them remember it? And my other big thing was like, how can I make sure it's like good math? Like not just like, there's a lot of things out there that's like tricks to remember things, but I was like, I want them to know like the Common Core way. Like how am I gonna make sure that, you know, what I'm singing to them is like true to the Common Core standards? Of course, like that's what's going through my brain. So I just started, you know, fiddling around, playing around, and then just songs were coming to me, and that's just kind of how it went. So.
Match 'em up over the line. They just gotta match up right over the line. Nice job. You guys are like blowing up the chat. All right, can I get like a, you know, you could just give me a little one of these so I don't feel like I was playing to a screen. Can I get a little, oh, there we go, a little unmuted clap. There you have it. 10 out, oh, Eric gave me a 10 out of 10? Wow.
And we give you a 10 out of 10, Mrs. Williams. Thank you for your hard work.
Hey, who wasn't tapping their foot? Come on. I know I was. Tell her great job. Thank you. That's it. We're moving on to board liaison reports. Let's start on the screen. So anyone on the screen? Deb, Diane, Sally?
Yes, the planning committee met again on Tuesday via Zoom, which was senior leadership, head of the union, and member Zach and myself to discuss the upcoming going back to school, which we're excited about. And Superintendent Kinder will be talking about that later. So we had a lot of open discussion about everything that's going on and keeping up on everything. So kudos to everybody who is working to get those students back in school.
Anyone else on the remote? Any from my left? From my right? Oh. I do have a legislative update. The state of Illinois is winding down the 101st General Assembly. The last 2 days will be tonight and Wednesday they will adjourn sine die at 11:59. That'll be the end of the 101st General Session. There is something possibly in the works that might be historical. Michael Madigan has been Speaker of the House for 35 years plus, I believe, and sort of took his name out of the running today to be the next speaker. He may still come back and put his name back in the running. That will be something of historical proportion because he is the longest serving Speaker of the House in Illinois, or not Illinois history, but also in United States history. Any state has never had a speaker serve this long. There is numerous bills that are being debated right now on the floor in Springfield, either on the Senate or the House, and there's restorative justice bills, there's some funding bills for education. There are numerous things happening right now. But the big thing that seems to be taking up a lot of the oxygen is who will be the next Speaker of the House of the state of Illinois. So you might want to keep an eye on that in the newspapers in the next few days and see what happens there. If there's no more reports, we will move down the agenda to Ms. Kinder, action report. You have no report? Push the button. No
Number
report?
9, audience.
Oh, I'm sorry, audience participation. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address the board this evening? If so, please step forward and state your name. We ask that you, if you have documents, that's great, thank you, and kindly keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Grace Avery. I'm a junior at Bolingbrook High School. Some of you may recognize me as I am heavily involved in our school's music and theater programs. At the start of winter break, BHS choir students received the immensely devastating news that our teacher, Mr. Fisher, is being forced to choose a leave of absence for the majority of second semester because he cannot teach in person due to the more extreme safety precautions he must take to protect his immunocompromised daughter from COVID-19. Since then, choir students have collected 181 signatures from BHS students, parents, alumni, and other community members and supporters of our choir program, urging you all to allow Mr. Fisher to continue teaching us from the safety of his home during the hybrid phase of the Return Together 360 plan. We fully understand that this is not an allowance that can be made for every teacher. However, Mr. Fisher is not every teacher. This is a very specific and unique case. In a math or science class, a substitute can give students an assessment and easily grasp their skill level and understanding of content, but this is not at all the case with choir. It takes time to fully understand a student's voice in the way that Mr. Fisher does, having taught a majority of his students for multiple years. Receiving vocal advice from a new teacher who doesn't have that extensive knowledge of our voices could cause serious damage to our vocal development. Mr. Fisher knows our vocal strengths and weaknesses and goals better than we do, and that's how he helps us be so successful. Throughout the pandemic, students in the arts have had to grieve the loss of countless opportunities. Mr. Fisher is one of the only people who has given us some sense of normalcy. He worked endless hours for months to put together the overwhelmingly successful Madrigal dinner and holiday concert that you all spoke about at your last meeting. We couldn't have done those things without Mr. Fisher, and we won't be able to continue having such successes without him. He's gone above and beyond organizing virtual masterclasses and Q&As with Broadway professionals and world-famous composers. Mr. Fisher has made this year the best it can possibly be for his students despite the less than ideal circumstances. And for a lot of his students, it's the reason they're getting by in the remote environment. At BHS, we are constantly being encouraged to prepare for our post-secondary plan. I am in 3 choir classes and AP music theory. That is how I am preparing for my post-secondary plan. This is not just an extracurricular for me, this is my entire life, my college, and my career. And I'm not the only student in this position. So something I am especially worried about is who will be teaching AP music theory if Mr. Fisher is on leave, because just because someone is qualified to teach choir doesn't necessarily mean they're qualified to teach AP music theory. Having both qualifications is a specialized skill that Mr. Fisher has. He knows the AP theory material inside and out, and he knows how to teach it in a way we'll understand in the remote environment, which, as you can guess, presents a boatload of challenges. So here we are, we have students heading into AP testing, we have concerts to prepare for that we want to be just as successful as they were in first semester. We have seniors who are preparing for their post-secondary plans and getting ready for college auditions. And we have students going to represent BHS at the All-State Choir Festival this semester. I know you would not give the football team a brand new coach who didn't know any of the plays or which team members played which positions right before the playoffs, because that would be crazy, right? But that's essentially what you're going to do to us by giving us a brand new choir teacher in the middle of the year. Most importantly, and I can't emphasize this enough, Mr. Fisher invests in his students' mental health and well-being more than any other teacher I know. Not only does Mr. Fisher foster his students' musical growth, he also takes the time to know his students personally, and many of them rely on him for mental and emotional support. In a year where everything is completely upside down, this support is vital. Many students, including myself, will severely suffer academically and/or emotionally through this change. So if it is true that the students are the board's top priority as we transition back to in-person learning, and I sincerely hope we are, please allow Mr. Fisher to continue teaching us from home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. We also think Mr. Fisher is wonderful, and we are extremely proud of the hard work, dedication of all of our choral, music, all of our students in the fine arts. With that said, thank you for sharing this copy with me. And I do also want to mention that every personnel matter is handled on an individual basis, but we take your words into to heart. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Very well done. Thank you. I think Mr. Fisher's wonderful as well. So I've seen all the productions and the things that you guys put on and that he's behind. So I've much appreciation for that. Moving down the agenda, Rachel, action report.
No report.
Thank you. Ms. White, action reports 11.1 and 11.2.
Yes, and good evening. Last time I presented information on elementary guided reading component of Fontes and Pinnell, and tonight I'm seeking action.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Pero?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
And President Quigley?
Yes. 11.2.
Yes, last time I presented information on board policies 4.180, 6.340, 7.40, 7.315, and 8.95, and tonight I'm seeking action.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Member Badura, second by Member Pero. Is there any discussion?
I had a question. Hang on a second. Let me find it here. Apologize, but on 7.315, restrictions on publications in high schools. Could you just go over that one a little bit for me, the basis of that one, what that one's about?
Sure. So can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So sure, this policy, again, these are updates to our board policies that currently are in existence. This policy existed formerly, complete policy. However, we thought it would be prudent to break it out K-8 and high school 9-12. We've already voted on elementary 8. It's already been approved. It was presented, I can't remember when, but maybe a couple months ago. And this is the high school portion that is now being presented. Clearly, the reason that the policy was broken up is that when it pertains to publications at high school, a little bit different than K-8.
And can you just kind of like talk a little bit about the gist of the publications and what?
So basically just ensuring that our students, as they create publications such as school newsletters or opinion within the newsletter or anything that they're distributing on campus, that it's in compliance with board policy so that it is appropriate in language and in nature, and that it is not libelous, slanderous, obscene, vulgar, etc. So that's basically the bulk of the policy, going through what is appropriate for students to distribute at a campus, including school newsletter, including with club meetings, et cetera, or any other activity that they may be involved in that may involve or consider any distribution of literature, whether or not it's written by students or whether or not it's by, a guest speaker or whomever that's on campus at the school.
Or a guest speaker, you're saying? Because
I'm just using an example. That there are school clubs where there could be an invited guest and there could be literature. It has to be appropriate if it's distributed. That's just an example. There's many types of examples.
Because this is in the student category, correct?
Right.
The 7.315. Okay, so that was one of my questions actually, is it just for the students? Is it for the teachers? Is it for guests? But it's mostly just for the students, correct?
Yes, school-sponsored media. There's a definition there on top, means any material that is prepared, substantially written, published, or broadcast by a student journalist at a public school, etc.
Okay. Because I'm reading like forbidden material, and I was just kind of wondering what the forbidden material might be. And you're just saying like pornography or
things that are contrary to the spirit of promoting positive standards within public education. So yes, I'm talking about libelous, slander, anything causing harm against any particular group, etc.
Essentially age-appropriate material.
Correct.
With community standards.
Well, I'm kind of asking is because like there's a lot of banning going on in Facebook and Twitter and those kinds of things, and sometimes some people might think that some things are a fine line of, and I just want to make sure I kind of know where we're going with this one, because I know that there are some groups that are starting to ban books and stuff, and I don't really want to go down that road of where we're banning books, and that's why I'm asking what materials are considered forbidden. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Correct. So no, this is more school-sponsored media, again, such as a school newsletter, school newspaper, things of that nature. It's not limited to that, but that is a main example I'd like to give and provide.
Okay, so we're not like censoring like instructional materials or anything like that.
This isn't the book
intent
committee.
of this policy.
Purpose of this particular policy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a motion, we have a second. No further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Member Perro,
Yes.
Member Gilbert,
Yes.
Member Campbell,
Yes.
Member Badouris,
Yes.
Secretary Sikora,
Yes.
Vice President Zach,
Yes.
and President Quigley.
Yes. Mr. Gazafi. Action report, item 12, no report. Number 13, Ms. Nash.
Good evening. Action Report 13.1 is our consolidated action report. This evening, we're seeking approval for 33 items for certified personnel, 76 items for classified personnel, and 2 items for classified administrative personnel.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
I do have a comment, Mrs. Nash. On page 7 of the agenda, there is a man taking, I believe, an FMLA, and there is no ending date. There's only a beginning date on that. I think there's only one there. Can we check on that? I believe it's on page 7.
I see it. Yes, I will make sure that that gets corrected for the next board meeting.
Thank you.
There's no further
Then,
discussion.
I do have a question on that. I was just kind of wondering, Ms. Nash, do we get a lot of kids coming out of college that are applying for our schools? Because or like when we hire, are we like what kind of? I don't want to say it wrong. What are our qualifications when we're hiring new people into the district? Are we looking more for experience? Are we looking for, and both are good, believe me, both are good. But I just kind of want to know when we're hiring, what are we actually looking for? I know we're short on employees too, especially during the pandemic. And well, not employees themselves, but like substitutes and things like that. So if somebody would like to apply to our district, maybe they're a sub or something, or if they're interested in working here, is there something that we are emphasizing when we are hiring our employees? Or is it, can you explain, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I guess my question is for what positions are you speaking?
I'm just saying in general, what is our philosophy when we're hiring employees for Valley View School District? What are the criteria or the qualities that we're looking for? And maybe that'll help people and help promote and bring people in. If you could just kind of talk about that a little bit, I would appreciate that.
So I think first and foremost, it's going to depend on the position that we're advertising for, right? And then the first thing that I would say we would want to look at is the job description and the essential functions that are inside each of those job descriptions. And so candidates are going to want to make sure when they're looking through those job descriptions that they are aware of those essential functions and that they would be able to perform those essential functions. When you go further down the job description, you can see education, qualifications, experience that might be necessary. All of those are things that are taken into consideration. And all of those are reflected in Board Policy 5.190. It's a mixture of education, experience, qualifications, and so on, no matter what the position is. And that's what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote would be in order.
Oh, wait, I do have a question. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Steve, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Call the vote.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Badouris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Next. Ash.
Yes. Action Report 13.2. This evening, we are seeking approval on 4 board policies. These were presented to you on December 14th for information. Those are 5.190, the professional personnel for teacher qualifications, 5.310, which is educational support personnel compensatory time off, 5.10, professional personnel resignations and retirement, and 5.70, religious holidays.
So move.
Second.
Motion seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do again, if you don't mind. If we could look at 5.190, professional personnel. And then if we look at down at the bottom, there's a number 2 under the category of the superintendent or designee shall. And then if we look at number 2, it was just kind of worded a little funny for me, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding exactly what that number 2 says. So if you could read that one for me and maybe just explain that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Sure. So this particular section here basically states that we're trying to look at assignment of personnel so that we can ensure that we have qualified personnel in all of our classrooms or all of our positions, so that we are not putting unqualified personnel, especially with students who are at risk or are at risk population. So it basically is just looking at how we place and hire educators accordingly.
This is the part I kind of don't understand a little bit. Here, I'll read it, and then I'll tell you the part I don't understand. So it says, through incentives for voluntary transfers, So I didn't know if that was for
We don't currently,
students.
we don't currently have a program in place for incentivizing voluntary transfers. We have a process in place for voluntary transfers, but we don't have an incentive program for that, no.
Okay, then it says professional development, recruiting programs, or other effective strategies ensure that minority students and students from low-income families are not taught at higher rates than other students by unqualified, out-of-field, or inexperienced teachers. The part that I don't understand is are not taught at higher rates than other students by unqualified, out of field. I don't understand what that part means. What are we saying in that part? Are not taught at higher rates.
Is making sure that, I think we're trying to make sure that that our at-risk students are always in a classroom or always in front of a teacher that is as experienced as possible, that has qualifications that are relevant to that particular subject, right?
Can I chime in? Sorry, Judy, to interrupt. I just want to make sure that you guys know I'm standing up here at the podium. Liz Wagman.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Sally. Good seeing you. I want to let you guys know that that language is explicitly statutory language, and it aligns with what Judy is saying, is that we want to make sure that the at-risk students are getting the highest quality of instruction. And again, that is from statutory regulations that requires that they be at the forefront in scheduling and ensuring that they're receiving access to certified and appropriate staff. So that is not Valley View language, that is actually a statutory regulation.
Okay, in Valley View, don't we do that for all students though?
We do, but historically speaking, in other districts throughout the country, that had been experienced. And so I think that was put in as a safeguard from the state level to say that, hey, it's not okay to just provide a subpar, in terms of qualifications, instructor to students who need it the most. And so we are fortunate that we have highly qualified teachers to service all of our students, including our at-risk students. So in this case, it's statutory because it needs to be there, but it does not pertain to us in Valley View.
And it deals with intentionally assigning the teachers to classrooms.
The minority and low income kids, is that what you're saying?
At-risk students.
At-risk, minority, bilingual, special education, any students who perhaps in other circumstances were not provided with high quality or highly qualified instructors.
Statutory language is state law. So
yeah, I know that.
And this comes from the federal regs also.
Then I have another question on 5.310. Let me look at it here. And this one is educational support personnel. And then Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind, could you just brief us on that one, if you don't mind?
Yeah, this is written in line with the Fair Labor Standards Act regarding the time off that can be afforded to this group of personnel. So again, this is explicitly from statutory regulations and aligns with the time off policies.
And then can you tell me kind of just briefly, it doesn't have to be in depth, but briefly the time off policy is it has to do, I don't understand the pay of 1.5 time.
That's
here, I'll read the.
Yeah, that's the overtime compensation for time worked.
Okay, so this is the sentence in particular. Employees may be given 1.5 hours of compensatory, I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing that very well, time off in lieu of cash payments for each hour of overtime worked. And then it kind of talks about the maximum amount of time that you can have. So can you just kind of explain that to me a little bit, what that means?
Yeah, that's talking about what overtime they're going to be allowed to take, how much overtime they may take, and that's what it's kind of walking you through. And again,
So
this,
they get time off for, instead of, in lieu of overtime, like they can take time off or a salary? Is that kind of what it's saying?
not understanding the question, sorry, Sally.
So are you,
Oh,
are you
okay.
asking, Sally, whether or not they're able to take, they have a choice whether or not they can get paid for overtime or take compensatory time? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. And how that works,
It
yeah.
generally depends on what the collective bargaining agreements say for those individuals. And so that's why the board policy refers to those documents. And then others, it would be subject to the supervisor's approval.
The language that you're referring to, Sally, explicitly says applies to those that are not represented by an exclusive bargaining representative. So most of our employees belong to a bargaining unit. And so the language that is included in that collective bargaining agreement is what determines that. And this just refers to, again, something from the Fair Labor Standards Act. So again, this is statutory. This is not Valley View language. This is the law.
Okay, and I'm just going to ask one more question just to make sure I have it straight here. So 1/2 hour of compensatory, and I can't say that word, I apologize, compensatory, I can't say it, time off in lieu of cash payment. So would it match like the amount of time that they have, or do they have the choice of like 1.5 times if you take the time off, or if it doesn't match the amount of time, does that 1.5 hour, is it like overtime is what I'm saying, and how does that work?
Liz, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to try to answer that one?
And I apologize, guys, but it really doesn't, go ahead.
Judy, do you want to talk? I mean, here's the thing, Sally, again, like Rachel indicated, this is only governing the individuals that are not aligned with a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. And additionally, I just want to point out that this is just saying that they may have the opportunity to do this. And then Judy, if you want to chime in with what your standard practice is for this policy for those few individuals that aren't governed by a CBA, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so it's an either or generally. And again, I'm trying to think of classification that would be covered under this, and I'm at a loss right now to think who was
it. Like secretaries? Is it secretaries?
Secretaries have a provision in their CBA with respect to compensatory time, and in their case, I believe if they're taking compensatory time, if they're like 1 hour overtime, they can either get 1 hour overtime at whatever rate that is of pay, or they're eligible for 1.5 hours of compensatory time that can be taken, and there are parameters with respect to when they can take that compensatory time. I believe it has to be done within like 30 days of the time that they are given that they earn that compensatory time. So that's all subject to the collective bargaining agreement for that particular classification.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience, everybody. Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote would be in order.
Member Maduris?
Yes.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora? Secretary,
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. Action item.
13.3. Yep.
13.3.
That's me also. Action report 13.3 is resolution number 2110, authorizing dismissal of an educational support personnel employee for reasons other than reduction in force.
Is there a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Member Campbell?
Yes.
Member Gilbo?
Yes.
Member Perro?
Yes.
Member Maduris?
Yes.
Secretary Sikora?
Yes.
Vice President Zach?
Yes.
President Quigley?
Yes. I think you called my name.
Good. Thank you.
Return together update. Ms. Kinder, if you would kindly.
Yes, sir. We are going to project the presentation slides on the screen. Hopefully everybody can see those. Okay, so here we stand 6 days shy of being at a 10-month mark since we first had a school closure last spring. I know that sounds hard to believe because at that time we thought this was going to be a short-term thing. It certainly has not been, and I think we're all coming to the realization that we are in this for the long haul. And so many of my comments tonight, I'm going to try to put in context of kind of where we were and what we've learned and how we're looking at things. 10 months in, we've certainly learned a lot. So tonight I just wanted to provide an update related to the planned transition to hybrid learning and answer any questions and discuss next steps. As always, we continue with the emphasis on ensuring a safe and secure learning and working conditions for our staff and students, following the guidance that is being provided to us. We are ensuring that we are being responsive to changing conditions, and those have changed a great deal over time. And we're doing everything we possibly can to meet the instruction and support needs for our kids, whether it be remote, hybrid, or both. And it's certainly a lot that we're charged with and that we've put upon our school staff's shoulders to ensure that that is done, and put upon our family shoulders to support as well. And ensuring that we're keeping the lens of every learner every day with our core belief of equity, and then putting the resources where we believe that they can best support our students. So we celebrated a new year. We are all hopeful and optimistic that 2021 will bring new opportunities, new chances, 365 new chances in the days ahead. We certainly hope that it's a brighter year. But we are also realistic, and we know that we still have challenges that lay ahead. We remain in the period of full remote learning, and we are in the position of getting ready and moving forward with our planning to move and begin a slow, gradual, intentional transition to on-site learning in a hybrid model, and we're going to speak to that a little bit later in the presentation. I do have staff on the virtual meeting that will be able to support the later portions of the presentation or any questions that you may have as we discuss kind of the path that we've taken and where we are headed next. So this timeline has been shared and modified multiple times, and what we are looking at now is our planned transition to hybrid learning, which would bring school staff on site who are supporting the first transition. They would come back this week. And then our first transition of students would be on January 19th with pre-K, K1, 6, and 12. I'm going to speak to that a little bit later. And as you can see, if you can't read all of the writing, this is available online, and this continues to be modified and made accessible around the clock. But we are being very gradual with a phased return at each level, small return at each by grade and by program at each level. The considerations regarding our transition plan to hybrid and or any future adaptive pauses will always have a sight on the level of community transmission, district metrics, as well as our ability to consistently implement key mitigation strategies. And I've shared with you many times exactly what I'm referring to when I talk about mitigation strategies, and I'll provide a kind of a summary again as we start to move a little bit forward down this path. I do want to make the comment that when we first began getting our arms wrapped around the data and the levels of community transmission, we became very focused on certain metrics at the region, county, and zip code level, and we continue that focus as well. But we're also now starting to put a different lens and perspective in viewing that data as we look on what's happening around and what the impact is inside of the district. We do keep our eyes set on the Illinois Department of Public Health guidance, and there's multiple metrics that they outline that start to give you some signposts of what the level of community transmission is. And we are seeing some stability coming forward with new cases and new youth cases, so that is an encouraging sign. At the Region 7 level, which includes Will County and Kankakee County, we see a 7-day rolling average at 11.1% for this region as of January 8th. We are hopeful, and it's been communicated by Governor Pritzker, that at the end of this week, Region 7, who's currently under Tier 3 mitigations, will see reduced mitigations as long as the metrics are maintained. And this is positivity rate, the ICU, and medical surgical bed availability, as well as a decline in the number of hospitalized patients. There was an extended period of monitoring these metrics, so although the region had met these metrics, the mitigations were held in place for that buffer after the holiday season as a proactive strategy that was recommended to hopefully mitigate transmission in the community. So we're hopeful for our community, for our business community, for some sense of normalcy in life that this is the case, but we're also hopeful that our community remains vigilant in taking precautions so that we don't see any increases in the future. As I alluded to earlier, the Will County metrics, we look at test positivity and new cases per 100,000. Those currently do remain at a substantial level, but we see some strong signs with the new cases and youth cases at a minimal level. And that's an important story to tell. When I said that we're in this for the long haul, when I'm having conversations with people, people often act surprised when I talk about next year. And based on everything that I read and absorb and listen to from experts, we will be dealing with this next year. Test positivity is a function of tests, the number of tests that are given. So if we could fast forward to the fall or the winter of next year, if there's a lower number of tests based on the number of positives, test positivity could remain high for quite some time. So we may be living in a world with a positivity rate or in a community with a positivity rate of 10 or 12% for quite some time, because it's merely a function of the number of tests. And we also have to realize that the concept that schools will not return in any fashion until there is 0% positivity or no new cases is simply not a reality, or a reality that I believe that our community or our families or our educators would be willing to accept. We may be looking at another full year or more before we see numbers of that nature. And even then, it's a changing game, as COVID has shown itself to be in terms of spread, or now we hear news of new variations, new variants, or another strand emerging. And so it is a constantly moving picture. And so keeping this in mind when we look at the data and not making our decisions based on any one metric is really critical. When we look at our zip code data, that zones us in a little bit further. We are seeing around 11% positivity in our immediate zip code areas, and we continue to monitor this as well. Looking at the trend lines over time, since just before Thanksgiving, when we announced the adaptive pause, so that you see on the chart there that says 11/16, so that November 16th board meeting, we saw some very marked spikes in the positivity rate at the region and county and local level. And since that time, we certainly have seen a decrease. You see the trend lines coming down. We have some movement with the metrics inching back up in some areas as of late, but we do continue to monitor that, and we are certainly in a different place than we were on November 16th. November 16th. Again, our new cases and our youth cases is important to note because that is starting to paint a different picture as well. So those are important metrics that we look at. We also monitor our internal numbers. Our dashboard is available online. There has been some questions about the immediacy of the updates. It does take a day to update the dashboard from the time that it's reported. So it doesn't instantly go in there the moment that one of our school nurses enters a case. So just for full transparency with the community, those cases are reported and they do show in the dashboard. It just takes time for the upload to occur. Of course, we saw a decrease. Perhaps it was a decrease in reporting. Perhaps it was a decrease in cases. What I can only tell you is it was a decrease in the reported known cases to us. And the known staff positive cases in terms of active cases is 18. Remember, this is out of a staff of more than 2,200 staff. And then that's in isolation for positive cases. And then the known student positive cases is 21. Again, that's reported. And so we certainly encourage our families to also continue to report to us so that we can tell the impact that our families are feeling at a local level in the home and what that means for our school community. You see the quarantine number there as well. And of course, we expected a decrease over time and being full remote, but this is something that we continue to monitor. As we plan for a safe and healthy transition to hybrid learning, we've taken many steps to ensure that we have an awareness of the community metrics around us. And as we're moving into the range of being at a moderate level of community transmission, we'll of course monitor that. And we most importantly will monitor the impact that we're seeing with cases as well in the district for staff and students, as well numbers of quarantine, and being very intentional about our efforts as we're monitoring that. As you saw in the chart earlier, and I'll refer to shortly, we are planning staggered transition by group at each level. These are small groups of students, small numbers of per classroom, small numbers per building that will come back at any given time, which allows us to be very intentional and measured in implementing safety protocols and helping students adjust and helping staff adjust, and having teachers have the opportunity to get acclimated in their classrooms without a lot of other students in the building. And so this will be the first transition that occurs for some of our pre-K learners, our kindergarten and first grade, as well as our 6th grade and 12th grade. Each of our schools has worked very hard and made many adaptations and improvements to their building plans for health and safety procedures. We've had the experience of having special programs on site. We learned a lot from that. We've learned a lot from other district successes. We do know many districts and many of that which we have visited that at a moderate level of community transmission with successful implementation of mitigation strategies, that school transmission is very low to non-existent when those strategies are in place. And so that is where our emphasis has been placed. Our schools have considered all of the variables with hallways and open spaces, markings, signage to have organized and safe movement. We have schedules developed for locations for lunch, allowing for adequate distancing, seating, passing periods at middle and high. That's something that's very important that the schools have thought through. And I'm going to give you perspective on what that will look like compared to what we would typically expect to see in a middle school or high school passing period with full hallways full of students. Arrival and dismissal is another area that school teams have thought about very carefully for safety. Furniture in classrooms, the considerations for safe distancing, 6 feet distancing, and all other safety procedures. All students and staff will receive a review of protocols and safety guidelines, and it will take time to adjust. We do know that we've learned a lot, like I said, from our previous experience and from other districts as well. And the adaptation, once everyone gets acclimated, can be done very successfully to the point where it does become kind of the new normal, and our students and staff adapt very well. Allowing time for students to transition in orientation, I know that's one thing that I heard, especially from kindergarten parents or pre-K parents who are sending their little ones in. And the small groups and the small class sizes will essentially have a built-in orientation and a built-in time to transition. Same thing for our 6th graders, because they're still our babies, and we still it's still a big change for them to be coming to middle school for the first time. To provide you perspective on our first transition, which is scheduled to occur on January 19th, I mentioned early childhood, kindergarten, 1st, 6th, and special programs. This chart gives you approximate numbers of what you would be looking at by level in each building, an estimation, and then what the classroom size would look like. So for example, in an elementary building, we may have approximately 13 to 31 kindergartners coming back, and then our class sizes, you can see in the column to the right, would be approximately 4 to 14. At middle school, for example, we have approximately 80 students in 6th grade coming back. Those students spread out amongst classes allows for a small class size at approximately 7 to 10 students. And then our high school, you can see even with our largest number at Bolingbrook High School with 240 students, that would be on site at a time, spread out amongst the entire big building, spread out amongst classrooms, does allow for adequate safe distancing and small class sizes to allow for distancing in the classroom. And our special programs who have operated successfully couple months ago, they have their own unique programming that of course is small in terms of number of total students on site and number of students in the classroom. So after I go through health and safety a little bit further, we are going to talk about each of the levels and what that means for hybrid students as well as for remote students. Health and safety inside of our schools, as I mentioned before, of course, community transmission is important and we watch that, but we also know that we can operate successfully. We've learned a great deal from the unknown when we were first taking this on in August. The focus really is on our strong ability to implement the 5 core mitigation strategies recommended by the Centers for Disease Control to lower the risk of transmission in schools. And the schools that have been open successfully so far have strong implementation, and we are fully prepared for this as well. That is consistent and correct usage of face coverings, social distancing to the largest extent possible, regular hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette, and ensuring that we're emphasizing those practices, routine cleaning and disinfection, and contact tracing in collaboration with Will County Health Department. From the unknown that we faced in August or September, we have come light years in terms of our ability to work with our local health department, to have our staff fully trained and comfortable with all of the protocols with contact tracing, and to essentially become very well versed in public health, something that was not an area that we were really deeply involved with previously. The protocols and communication with our local health department are stronger than they ever have been. And in terms of the guidance that's been given us for exclusion, return to school, we have solidly been implementing that and feel very confident that we are able to do so when students transition on site. Families will receive notification on the protocols. They've been shared previously. They're available on our web pages, on the school web pages. Families will receive a reminder mailing prior to their transition. We have health waiting areas in all of our buildings for students who may be exhibiting symptoms and need to go home ill. We have procedures and protocols in place for return to school, which requires an alternative diagnosis or a negative PCR, that's a viral test, viral COVID test, that is required of the students to return. And that includes a protocol if there are household members who are infected. We have quarantine and isolation guidelines that are in accordance with Illinois Department of Public Health and CDC guidelines. And we have strong protocols and procedures for contact tracing, including for non-close contacts and close contacts. I won't go into that information tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that information is also available on our website. And like anything, the more you become familiar with something, the more normal it feels, or the easier it is to remember that information. And this is a lot, I know, that we're communicating to parents. We are currently in the process of establishing a partnership with the Will County Health Department to receive point of care assessment for screening, an antigen screener for symptomatic students or staff. Of course, that would be by consent and would be just one tool in our arsenal to help us in the contact tracing effort if students are exhibiting symptoms and are on site. We also have received additional information about vaccine readiness for school staff. So we have been in regular communication with the Will County Health Department. We will be assisting in any way possible we can for the administration of that vaccine for our school staff who select that as soon as it becomes available. That is something that the effort at the state and county level, they're working very diligently to kind of revise and make that as efficient as possible. Phase 1A is in process. Our school nurses will be getting vaccinated in the upcoming week to 2 weeks, and we have school staff will hopefully be shortly after that. I've received many questions related to air quality as studies come out related to the lesser transmission on surfaces, but more so in the air. And I just wanted to reiterate some of the HVAC measures that we have put in place to support air quality and reduce the risk of transmission. This includes the increased outdoor fresh air intake, higher rated filters and more frequent filter changes, reverse flow fan filter units, HEPA filtration in the main office areas, nurses' offices, ill rooms, and the use of a disinfectant product in our air handling equipment. Yes, our schools will look different when students are back on site, but as you can see, they're still our schools, and the desks may be farther apart, and the markings on the floor may be quite prescriptive, and the signage may be more abundant. However, they're all done in the interest of ensuring that we're doing everything we possibly can to reduce any risk of transmission inside of our schools. So I just wanted to provide you with a quick glimpse at what some of our classrooms or hallways look like, and what students could expect when they return to school.
Thank you for that very comprehensive report, and you guys have done an outstanding job with that communication throughout this entire process. There's one thing that, you know, Rachel's talked about the positivity rates. Well, a lot of people don't test because they don't have a reason to, but we have people who are testing who don't necessarily have a reason to. So if you go test, say 100 people who think they have a reason to go test besides their professional requirements, being a nurse, doctor, so on and so forth. If 100 people show up to take the test and they all think they have some symptoms, that's the reason they go, and maybe let's just say 150 people show up, but 100 test positive, it skews the numbers. And that's part of the reason you see such a higher necessarily positive test rate of people who are testing. Randomly, if you're not having any symptoms and don't have any particular reason to go test, you won't go test. So if you see the state total of 14 million plus tests have been conducted, there's only 12.7 million people in the state of Illinois. So they've tested more than 2 million people that live here. So obviously people who are required to be tested because of their professions are getting tested much more often. I personally have not had the test, but my family members have because they had a reason to go get tested. So there you have it. I hope that kind of helps some of those numbers. And we also know that by zip code, we look better than some other places, but not as good as others. So it's you know, it's cyclical, I suppose.
Thank you. I did want to see if we have our virtual participants available on the screen. The self-certification information will be sent to our families as a reminder. Wearing the bracelet daily as part of this daily symptom screening and self-certification process, or it would be required to be done on site, will be part of our process. That information will be sent home. There's a lime green card that students will come with on their first day. I do need to access the, can we have the presentation simultaneously shown with the Zoom participants? No, okay. So I have slides that I think this is probably the most critical information for parents, just a summary of what each level looks like. Are they able to speak? Yes, okay, so they're able to speak. So that's the information on screening. Our first transition, I've said it multiple times, I'm saying it again, this transition timeline is available. And after today, the school communication will be the most frequent form of communication regarding any upcoming transitions, as well as on social media. Mary Worster, our Executive Director of Student Services, can you please speak to the STEP transition, please?
Sure. Good evening. STEP transition program will return on site on January 19th. In-person learning will occur on Thursday through Friday from 7:15 to 12:30 with a remote Monday. Our full remote model will be a blend of asynchronous and synchronous work with morning and afternoon support time. And then instructional block will run from 8 to 12 for our fully remote STEP students.
Adam Herder, Executive Director of Middle and High Schools, on high school transition, please.
Good evening. For our high school transition, as mentioned earlier, 12th graders will begin on site first as we stagger the grade levels back into the building. For students who have chosen the full remote model for instruction, they'll be have full exposure to all their teachers and classes 5 days a week. For students who have chosen the hybrid model, they'll attend 2 days a week on either Tuesday and Thursday or Wednesday and Friday. For all students, Mondays will be remote with a shortened schedule, similar to early release days that we've had in the past. And then the schedule for our high school will be going back to the 7-period schedule. And you can see an example on the screen. Periods last approximately 40 or 45 minutes. There is 10 minutes in between each period to allow for students who are joining classes remotely online to have a break. Also to safely transition students throughout the building who are there in person. You'll also note that while the 45-minute time frame is in the chart for each period, that does not mean that students will be, when they are at home, simply watching a teacher talk on Zoom for 45 minutes straight, multiple times throughout the day. Those class periods will be broken out with teachers using strategies to engage students, give students breaks. And then of course there are those 10-minute blocks, which add up to almost an hour of breaks during the day. Our next slide, I believe, is the middle school transition. Very similar in terms of the full remote versus hybrid model. Again, students who are full remote in middle school will have access to all of their teachers 5 days a week remotely. Similar model for hybrid students who are returning. Only differences in middle school being 6th graders will be the initial group of students who return. We again have Mondays that are remote with a shortened schedule. Here is on the screen is an example schedule of what it may look like for a student who returns on site. In this example, they are a last name A through K, which would mean they return on site Tuesday and Thursday, and then they would be remote the other 3 days of the week. In middle school and high school, as has been discussed in the past, students, when they are not on site or if they're fully remote, will be using Zoom to engage in classroom instruction with the teacher, which means that teachers will have students in front of them in person, as well as students remotely online. And we appreciate the tremendous efforts that have taken place to prepare teachers for this, for teachers' preparation on their own, to get ready to teach in this unique way. While of course, this is not something that really one of us have done before, we have had the chance to secure additional technology, including cameras, additional monitors to support this instruction, and are engaged in a significant initiative for professional development to support teachers as we continue to learn with this model. But what I will say is that we can be sure that even when students are remote at home and not on site, they will be able to engage directly in instruction with access to the teacher, asking questions of the teacher, getting feedback from their teacher throughout all of their periods in high school and their blocks at the middle school level.
Okay, thank you. Elementary school transition, Dr. Jill Chikalis.
Good evening. Our elementary school plan also has a full remote model and a hybrid model. In the full remote model, it will be a continuation of the current model with at-home learning 5 days a week. There will be a designated remote learning teacher assigned to each grade level, multiple if needed, based on the family's learning selection preferences. There's been an adjustment of class rosters as needed, again, based on the selection of the learning preferences. In our hybrid model, we'll begin on January 19th with kindergarten, first grade, and our special education programs. These students will transition back similar to the middle school model, where they will be on site 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday. Our self-contained special education programs will be on site Tuesday through Friday. All students in the hybrid model will experience at-home learning Mondays with the early release time, just like the middle school. The hybrid model offers a blend of on-site learning and at-home learning throughout the quarter as well as throughout the week. There was also an adjustment of class rosters that will take effect so that when students come back, they will be with their semester 2 teachers beginning January 19th.
For a summary of our early childhood, Mary Worster, Executive Director of Student Services.
Our early childhood program will continue with a remote model from the start of school and have at-home learning 5 days a week. Our on-site model will be a phased transition beginning the week of January 19th with our multi-needs and our stellar students, as well as walk-in speech beginning that following week. We would be phasing in our IEP students and blended with multiple services. And that final phase in will be our preschool for all students, preschool for all extended, preschool expansion grant students, tuition, and speech students in our blended learning. Their learning model will be Monday through Thursday, with Fridays being the asynchronous day.
Thank you very much. So just in summary, our first transition is highlighted there for January 19th. Of course, we will continue to monitor up until this point, and we will continue to monitor very closely while we transition, while we're on site, and as we move into that next transition of January 26th. I know for students, for families, and for staff, this will be a huge change requiring a whole lot of effort, a whole lot of hard work, and it will present many challenges. I know that the range of emotions will range from eager and excited to be back to anxious and worried, and I know that that's normal for everyone who's experienced a transition for your child or yourself or going back to the workplace. I know that we are also committed, however, to sticking in this together and working through those challenges, to keep the communication lines open, to keep the support open, and to adapt and be flexible. If things aren't working, we will adjust. If conditions change dramatically, we will adjust. Please know that we do not make any of these decisions lightly. We know that the task of transitioning to on-site, running hybrid and remote at the same time, or transitioning your little ones who've never been in school before is going to cause a whole huge effort by parents, by staff, by teachers, by everyone involved, our building leaders. But I know we're up for the task, and I know that it's the right thing to do to take small and measured steps in the direction of returning our students on site. We do not make these decisions lightly, but we will stick through it together. You can expect communication coming from your building, your school, respective school or schools prior to the transition. You'll receive a health and safety mailing reminder. You should have already received a transportation mailing. If you are a family who has chosen to stay full remote and you received a transportation mailing, that's okay. You can just file that away for future use. You do not need it at this time. We do have the ability, if you're concerned about your selection that's registered in the system, you can log into the parent portal to see what that is, if it's listed as remote or hybrid. You will receive an email from your school with additional information prior to the transition, and then we will continue to update you through board meetings and other communication, social media, and the website as well. So again, I know this is a lengthy, detailed summary, but it is critical that everyone have an awareness of just how much thought and planning has gone into arriving at this point, and how much thought and care will be put forth as we take the next step forward and return our students on site and our staff on site. So I thank you all for your effort and your partnership. I know it's not an easy ask to make abrupt changes or big changes, but I think we're up for the task, and I am hopeful that we can move forward and build on our successes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and to all those on the screen, thank you for your efforts as well. As we've said, we know this isn't easy, a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and we are grateful and very appreciative of all the efforts from all of our staff and the families and the community in general, just for the efforts that they put forth to try and make this as best as we can. Moving down the agenda, computer device refresh.
Wait, can we ask any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I do, actually. You know, I always do.
Well, perhaps you should.
First of all, I want to say this is great that we're doing this. I know there's a lot of people that are excited about finally getting back to school, and it's great that we have all of the, we know we're not going to have all of the kinks worked out, but we have a lot of planning that has been done, and we're ready to do that. So that's great for the families that really want that. And I have a question about is there remote only for middle school and remote only for high school as well as elementary school? I don't know if I saw that or not. They had choices at all three levels, correct? If you wanted to stay remote or if you wanted to be there?
That is correct. The difference is at middle and high school remote, they do not have a schedule change. They will stay with their same schedule. They'll just be participating remotely via live streaming and Zoom. At elementary, the team made the decision that we would have separate sections that would be focused on remote due to the age, developmental need of the littlest learners. So those students would be in different sections. So it's likely that they would be moving teachers to make that adjustment at the semester.
Okay, so some kids will have new teachers starting when they start this month, right? They'll different teachers than they had last semester at the elementary school. I know high schools and middle schools a lot of times do that, but I know the elementary schools aren't really used to that, but I'm sure they'll be okay with that. I have another question too. The planning time, I do notice that it looks like the high school goes the full time, but has early release on Mondays. And the middle school goes a little shorter than they normally do, but the elementary, they're going full on. Am I seeing that right?
Mondays are full remote early release for all levels with the exception of early childhood who has their full remote on Fridays. So elementary, middle, and high all are full remote on weeks when there's 5 days. The Monday becomes a full remote early release day.
And then does the high school does the middle school have a shorter day than normal during this? Or what time, I'm sorry, I don't remember. What is the release time for the middle schools?
Mr. Herder, can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, the 2:35 time will be the same. So this information is posted online as well, but the a schedule for students and teachers on non-Mondays would be the same as it has always been.
So at 2:35 they get, and then I'm just kind of wondering a little bit, did the elementary school teachers lose planning time? Will they have enough time for planning, especially the ones that I know you have some that are full remote, and then you have some that are hybrid, and just wondering if they lost any planning time, or if there's going to be enough planning time for those elementary people.
Rachel, I can speak to that. So all of the elementary teachers, whether they're remote or hybrid, receive the 2:15 to 3:25 plan time every single Monday. They also have their regular 35-minute plan time daily, and then we have worked in an additional 30-minute plan time one time per week for each elementary teacher, just as something additional for the added responsibility that we acknowledge that they will be adding certain activities to Seesaw or links for the students on their at-home learning days. So that's how we added that. And then we also have once a month, one of the early releases will allow for the PLC time as well as the professional development time. And we use a lot of the time that we have now in that last 45 minutes of the school day where optional professional development can be offered. And now we're building it back into our traditional early release time.
Sounds good. And that additional 30, I think you said 30 or 35 minutes that they get during the week, how is that worked in?
So we collaborated with the Student Services Department, and we worked with the learning environment coordinators and our specials teachers. And we looked for ways to incorporate an additional movement break so that our kids that are at home doing remote can have an additional 30 minutes where they can get up and move around and move away from their screen and do something that's a little bit more interactive. that's not involved with looking at a screen. And for the students on site, the teachers would be able to have the plan time as well, where somebody else would come in, like a learning environment coordinator or a specials teacher who had an open section, and provide a movement break for the students that are in school.
And did you say that was 30 minutes per week or 30 minutes per day, or?
It's an additional plan time per week.
Okay, thank you.
And that is in addition to the students' regular PE and recess time, or teacher-taught PE time, like for movement breaks in the classroom.
So I do have one more question about that. Is it a combined 30 minutes, or is it a broken up, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there type thing?
No,
is it enough time for teachers to plan?
Yeah, it's one full block of 30 to 35 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Moving on the agenda, computer refresh. Astrid, I'm assuming that's you?
Actually, I'll take it, and Astrid can certainly jump in as needed. We do find ourselves at a crossroads. District certainly was well prepared and anticipating the need for computing devices for all students in this challenging time of remote learning. But we do find ourselves with some of the equipment becoming dated. We purchased devices, Chromebooks namely, back in 14-15 and 15-16, which will have completed 5 or 6 years of service and have reached the end of their useful life. We also have a significant number of desktop computers also at the end of their useful life that have been in use for 7 years and are scheduled for replacement. The past 2 years, we've seen replacement of most of the certified staff laptops, and we're proposing to replace a smaller number of those end-of-life laptops this year with a touchscreen flip laptop model that's become the district standard for all certified staff. Remaining certified non-classroom educators will receive a non-touch laptop 3 years ago, and they'll also be having computers replaced with these new touch flip laptops. The current devices will be reallocated as school resource computers, namely for use by guest teachers or as replacements as repairs are needed. The proposed purchase of student Chromebooks to be utilized next school year will be replace units that have been in use for, again, 5 or 6 years. We have over 19,200 devices being used by students as one-to-one Chromebooks, tablets, spares, or replacement devices at all grade levels. 4,915 touchscreen Chromebooks will be distributed to our 2nd through 5th graders as part of this proposed refresh. The other 1,683 Chromebooks to be purchased will be non-touch devices to be used as one-to-one Chromebooks utilized by middle and high school students. A total of 7,881 5 to 6-year-old Chromebooks will be replaced with this purchase, which are now beginning to experience a high rate of component failure than their younger counterparts. The original lifespan of these Chromebooks was estimated at 4 years. Back in 2019, we had a successful conversation with Google, which resulted in an additional year of enterprise support, resulting in the extension of their useful life through the summer 2021. All total, we'll have 1,283 less Chromebooks than currently in production due to the addition of tablet devices for our youngest learners, namely pre-K, K1, and 2. Middle and high school computer labs currently use desktops, which are 7 years old and have reached their end of useful life. We'll be replacing those with what's known as a Chromebox. Namely, it's a small computing device that doesn't have a dedicated screen, but would have a monitor, keyboard, and mouse attached externally. At the high schools, the desktops will be replaced with a laptop to increase their mobility and flexibility of use, and proposing to purchase 185 student laptops to replace those desktops in such labs. All total, we're looking to replace 7,728 student devices, 325 staff laptops for a total of 8,053 computing devices. Prices are estimated at this time, would include all warranty, support, licensing, and cases as needed. We're finalizing costs. As you can imagine, computing devices are in very high demand for obvious reasons. And so we're trying to firm up as best we can, trying to get out ahead of the rush, getting these ordered now for a late spring delivery so that we're ready to go in the summer, getting them inventoried, ready to be deployed and distributed so we're ready to go for the new school year. We'll be bringing back an action report to you hopefully on January 25th with firm pricing and utilizing, as we have in the past, a tax-exempt lease along with some remaining digital equity formula grant funds to offset the cost of the lease.
Thank you, Gary. Much appreciated.
Can I ask a question to Gary?
Fire away.
Gary, I heard you talking about the desktops. Was that for computer labs?
Yeah, we're using a Chromebox desktop for our middle school CTE labs. That's our tech labs, if you will, in the middle schools. And then the high schools will have desktops retired, and we will replace those with laptops to aid in flexible seating and being able to move around the lab rather than being sitting at in front of a desktop.
So I guess my question, I guess the reason I'm asking that is I thought each student had their own device. So I was wondering why we have the lab still and ordering computers for these areas if each student already has their own device.
Yeah, I think with the career and tech ed labs and some of the dedicated labs like what do you call it? Production, media production, things of that nature. It's much easier to use a mouse and a dedicated monitor, larger screen monitor, than it would be, a 13-inch or 11-inch laptop. And so that software requires a little bit more specification, higher specification in the computer. Thus the need for having a dedicated machine at the middle school CTE labs. Also, as well as the high schools, those laptops are a little bit more robust, if you will, in their computing capability to provide, again, more horsepower, if you will, for those media production type of classes.
Thank you.
Moving down the agenda, legal services report. No report. AFT report. No report? Oh, okay. No report. Valley View Council report. Renee, if you would.
Good evening, Superintendent Kinder, Senior Administration, and members of the board. I come tonight to speak to you all torn. Last week, when I met with Member Sikora and Member Zach, you asked me point blank where I felt our staff was at in regards to returning. I was honest and said I really didn't feel comfortable answering that for you because things last Tuesday were extremely quiet. We had all just returned from a much-deserved winter break. We were excited for the new year, and we were enjoying being back with our students. Boy, what a difference 48 hours can make. By Thursday last week, things had taken a much different turn for union leadership. The emails, calls, text messages came pouring in. This continued more than normally over the weekend and even throughout the day today. For every message or person we talked to saying they are terrified to return, the next message was telling us how bad they feel we need to be back in person and give this a real shot. So as I stated to start, I am torn. When I hear even one member cry to me, yell at me, or send me data upon data telling me why we shouldn't return, it hits me. It hurts me, and it makes me feel obligated to share it with you. Why should anyone have to come to work feeling like that? We are not healthcare workers. We didn't sign up to have our lives put in jeopardy by coming to school. School. We're coming to school. No staff member or child should ever have to worry about coming to school. School is a safe place. School is a social place of learning, academically, socially, growing, and making lifelong memories for students. Nothing in this book is written or states that we should be risking our own health and putting our families at risk and our students in harm's way. Nothing. With neighboring communities preparing teachers and staff in Group B to receive vaccines even as early as next week, I have to ask why. Why are we willing to risk it? What would it hurt to wait a few more weeks at this point to ensure the utmost safety for our staff and allow those who want the vaccine to even get one dose before returning? The reality is it wouldn't hurt anyone. We've come this far. Why not just wait? We have some districts around us who are paused till March, some indefinitely paused, and some who have been on site a few times and or even the whole time since August. The issue for us here in Valley View is with so many of our large neighboring districts is that we don't have one story. We don't get to have one story. We have our Bolingbrook community who has been able to maintain current metrics that make us feel a lot more comfortable. But when we add in Romeoville right now, who is showing metrics at 16.55%, doubled what we're seeing in Bolingbrook, we are scared. The numbers have skyrocketed here in Romeoville over the last few weeks. How do we make a decision for all when we're clearly looking at a tale of two cities? Right here in our own towns we serve. I also feel the members of the Valley View Council are their own tale of two cities. Like I said, since Thursday, for every message I received saying we shouldn't go back, I got one saying we should. Our members know just how much our students need us. We see them struggling mentally, emotionally, and academically. We also see one another struggling with our own mental health and the toll that all of this isolation and remote teaching has taken on us daily. We need our students and they need us. I've said it before and I'll say it again. On paper and the presentation that Superintendent Kinder shared with you tonight, I do not think there is one more thing that we could do differently to prepare for this transition. We know the money this district has spent to get us to this point. We know the endless work that has gone on behind the scenes, and now it comes to the execution of these plans. I have to take a second and thank and highlight all the work that the building principals and assistant principals have done to prepare every aspect of this day for this transition. Arrival, dismissal, lunch, hallways, passing periods, office space, break rooms, student selections, the list is endless. The weight of all this will now shift on their shoulders as they have the responsibility to oversee all these plans and policies at each of our buildings. I hope that the members of the Valley View Council will also take a second and join me in thanking your administrators for all the work they have done and will be doing. Regardless of how we all personally feel about the return, they deserve a thanks and appreciation. Can we all come together for these plans to be carried out is the question. Can we put our differences and opinions to the side to take care of one another and keep our buildings open? Maybe we need more time in between these transition groups. Maybe we need more time to transition our high schools with the largest numbers. Have we learned enough from what we experienced in October? I know all these are questions that many of us have in our minds as we continue, and they will continue to roll in. One by one, we will answer them, and we will take each challenge and hiccup in stride. And I will ask our membership to do the same. We must respect one another, listen to one another, and follow all safety protocols and policies at all times. This doesn't just mean when we are on site. If we want our schools to remain open, then we have to do our part in our personal lives too. I am in between Romeoville and Bolingbrook daily, and every day I watch adults go into stores, restaurants, gas stations with no masks. Every day. I see this, and our membership sees this. It's not our students and children that are causing the rise in the metrics and the spreading of it. It's the adults. We have to do better. We have to be better. And we have to show our children more than ever the importance of the 3 W's. We also now call on our families to do the right thing. You must go through the self-certification process with your child or children daily. If they are ill, if you are ill, awaiting test results, please keep your children at home. We will support them online until they can return with us. We all must do the right thing. As of December 31st, our staff doesn't have COVID provisions to fall back on that we previously had due to our federal government not extending those provisions. If we get sick, it's our own sick days being used. If we have to isolate or quarantine, it's on us. So now members are faced with the challenge of what do they do every day. After speaking with Dr. Nash late last week about this topic, I am optimistic and hopeful that we can collaborate about this topic and look to offer solutions if and when a situation may occur here on one of our Valley View sites. I share Superintendent Kinder's optimism that we will adjust and grow in confidence every single week. I also ask that senior leadership be open to the challenges that our membership brings, listen to us, collaborate with us, and building admin, I call on you to be honest with senior leadership about the struggles that the staff is bringing to you. We have done all we can to be proactive, and now we will have to remain in a state of reactive, unfortunately, to deal with the issues as they occur, a state in which we work so hard not to be in. I also call on this Board of Education to offer any community support you can to help administration get those vaccines and available to those Valley View employees who want to take it. I also call on the Board of Education and Superintendent Kinder to explain to the membership or help me explain how and why. When I walked in here this evening, we had people who weren't allowed in, and we do not even have senior administration and the Board of Education all here present in this building. No more than 10. But starting Wednesday, we will have way more than 10 in every single building, including this one on site. Optics are everything at this point, and right now, this is poor optics for my membership to see. I am well aware of the mitigations and numbers allowed at certain gatherings, but this is poor. To our teachers and staff, I know this isn't going to be easy. I know you are scared. I know some are excited. I don't have answers to all of your questions, but I promise that Jared and I will continue to work tirelessly with senior leadership to get the answers that you need and support you at this transition at every single level and site. We hear you, we see you, and we are here for you. Lastly, I just want to once again thank all of our maintenance staff who have continued to work tirelessly for the last 10 months to prepare for this hybrid transition at each and every level. They have been busier the last 10 months than they ever have been in this district. You all deserve recognition for all you've done and will continue to do. And those buildings won't be as quiet for much longer, so please enjoy the calm before the storm, because we're coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Office personnel report, no report. Any old business before the board this evening? Any new business before the board this evening? Any questions from the public on actions we have taken this evening? Any announcements by the board? From my left, Mr. Zach.
Actually, I have a few announcements. Thank you, Renee, for what you said. We do listen to you. It was well spoken. We've gone through a long time of negativity and stuff like that, so I just want to say a few things. Welcome to 2021. It's a new year. We're going to try. As Rachel said, we're pulling the Band-Aid off, and we'll see how it works out. I just wanted to say a bunch of thank yous. We spent this winter here, home in Romeoville and Bolingbrook, and example is that the teachers and the staff at Irene King, they had a Thanksgiving Day. They ran out of hams and stuff, so they all pitched in to do that. Astrid had her IT department pitch in hams and turkeys for Christmas for the food pantry over at Irene King. So it's like, thank you for those people for doing that in the community that we all live in, because it really brings us together. You know, we have, in Romeoville, we have Rick from Fat Ricky's. He always gives to the community dinners and stuff like that. Up in Bolingbrook, they have Bob from Tailgaters. He does the same thing. It's just to the same person. It's like you wouldn't tell him you were looking at him. He does the same thing in Bolingbrook. He gives to the people that need food and stuff. You have Lee Bush from Operation Christmas. He does wonderful things up there. We have the Knights from Columbus. They donated some coats. You know what it is? Sometimes, yeah, it's been a really rough 2020, but 2021 is look back and try and enjoy and take a few positives and look forward for 2021. It will be better. We only have one way to go. That's all I have, President Quigley.
Thank you. Anyone else with comments? Moving down the agenda, which I just tucked away. Any announcements by the administration?
Just one, and I'll be brief. Thank you, Renee, for your comments. Very well spoken. You always bring the truth. You always bring the perspective, and Jared as well. And to you and to the membership, you know that my commitment stands to continue to work. We do not ever have a perfect plan. There is no playbook, but we are certainly willing to listen, certainly willing to learn and adapt or adjust if necessary. And we're in it with you as our building leaders, and we will continue to stand by that. So thank you for your comments, and you know we'll be continuing the conversation. We're here. Thank you all. And to our staff, I echo everything that Renee said in terms of the load that's been placed upon you over the past 10 months and the road that lies ahead of us. You've worked incredibly hard. We know the challenges aren't going to get any easier. They're going to change on the daily. And we are extremely appreciative of your effort and just your ongoing commitment to continue to push through for our kids and our families every single day. So thank you all for everything that you do. And you also continue to have the support of everyone around you to help us get through the next transition. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any announcements by the public? Seeing none, hearing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The ayes have it. Have a safe evening. Looking forward to what we can do in the future. Thanks, folks. Be careful out there.